Michael Jordan is not only the best basketball player, but he's the most exciting basketball player to ever play.
Tatum fires away, pumps it in, 51 for Jason Tatum.
The Big Three NBA podcast is powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. Hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of the Big Three NBA podcast. It's Sherrod Blakely with Gary Washburn. Kwani Lunis is not going to be with us today, but she promises she'll be back in the mix next week. So that'll be good to hear. Good to see Kwani back. Getting a little downtime. What's going on, Gary? How you doing?
Pretty good. Everything's good. Yeah. I mean,
good.
Obviously, interesting times in our world, but just like everybody else, just waiting for the results and figuring out what direction we're going in.
Yeah. And for those who have been under the rock for the last 3.5 years, Gary is referring to the U.S. presidential election, which is taking place today. And, and Gary, we both been around long enough to know that, or have experienced it being kind of over that night. That ain't going to happen this go around. And we may never see that day again where it's done in a night. It'll be interesting to see how all this plays out. But obviously, all we can do at this point is just wait it out. But I tell you what, your Boston Celtics ain't waiting to put that beat down on people.
That was a terrible transition, but yeah. Okay. Good job. Good effort.
That was a great transition, but Gary,
terrible transition, but we get it.
As I was saying, Gary Washburn, you're down in Atlanta. You saw what happened with the Hawks. Celtics with the 30-point win. Lots of different players stepped up in that game. Obviously, do a lot of really good things. But I wanted us to kind of kick things off talking a little bit about your boy Queta. Got his first NBA start. What were your impressions of what he was able to do out there?
Well, I thought he got a little tired early, lacked a little energy, but he was able to work himself into the game and get up to the tempo, because obviously a fast tempo was when games started, probably a little bit faster than he expected. But I thought he did well. I think he's learning out there. I think he's doing the things that everybody kind of envisioned when they saw him. When he first came on to the Celtics, and he was 7-foot guy, looks menacing. You said another guy you don't want to see in a dark alley, and looks like with the right coaching and direction and development, he can be a difference maker in the paint. He's not going to be a superstar scorer. He's not going to average 25 points a game, but he's going to get your rebounds. He can get your block shots. He's a rim threat in terms of rim running and alley-oops, and, decent free throw shooter. So a guy that the Celtics can really work with for their long-term future. He's only 25 years old. So he's got quite a few years ahead of him. So I just think he's starting to turn into the player that we envisioned. He's been now a full year in the Celtics system. Last year, obviously, most of the time on a two-way, played a few ball games, played a couple of playoff games. Didn't really make that much of an impact in the playoffs, but just was there for the ride and is in there to practice and get better. And he's starting to get better. And I just think that was a real vote of confidence to start him alongside Al Horford in Atlanta. And he ended up doing well, plus 31 in his 23 minutes, which was tied for the highest in that game, along with Derek White. He's a volume rebounder. He's not Andre Drummond out there or anything where he's going to be pulling down 18 boards, but he's going to get you some boards. He's going to get you a block shot or two. I said a threat at the rim. His whole thing is defensive positioning, being in the right place and staying out of foul trouble. If he can do that, he can develop into the center of the future, a guy you can put in the paint for the next 5 years to join Tatum and Brown, a guy who can play and start in this league.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about him that I really like, first of all, he's actually looking to make an impact beyond setting screens. He knows he has more to offer than that. And his second jump defensively is what really jumps out to me. It's as close as we've seen to Robert Williams, Time Lord, since Time Lord left. His ability to not only contest shots, but even when teams get that offensive rebound, He's able to contest that second shot too because he's got such a quick spring, and he's 9 feet lengthwise every day and Sunday. So there's a lot to like about Queta. The biggest thing I like about him though, and Gary, you kind of touched on this a little bit, is his upside. I mean, he's 25 years old. I mean, he is a young pup by any person's standard, and he's just starting to, I think, scratch the surface of how good he can be. He grew up, in Portugal, where he was a late bloomer when it came to embracing the game of basketball, and it seems that he's slowly but surely getting better and better. The more he plays the game, the more opportunities he gets. And, he's in this kind of really awkward position with the Celtics because he's a young guy that you want to develop, but he's on a team that's trying to win a championship. And usually those two things do not coalesce together. And yet the Celtics are still finding ways to continue to be an elite team, continue for a championship while still developing young guys like Queta, young guys like Jordan Walsh. Peyton Pritchard, he's no OG or anybody, any stretch of the imagination. He's got some upside to him as well. But Queta specifically fits, it seems like a need that they have as far as developing that next big, possibly that big of the future. And, along those lines, Gary, you touched upon him playing with Al Horford, going with the double bigs. How do you feel about the double bigs, particularly with him and Al? Because that's a different kind of double bigs than Al and Luke.
Yeah, I think it allows Al to be a little bit more freer offensively to play the 4 position and shoot threes. I thought Al was active last night, hit a real tough layup that I think impressed his teammates, kind of a spinning
up
layup.
And under.
Yeah, I mean, I was impressed with that. And I just think at this point with Al, you're just working him in and you're just trying to get him to break a sweat, to get in great shape. And I'm not saying he's bad shape, but just get into playing condition because he didn't play much in the preseason. And you're trying to save him for the postseason. You're not trying to play him 30, 35 minutes. I think now the good thing about it, I'm not crazy about the double big lineup. I think it's effective, though. I don't know, would use it all the time, but I think with their versatility, and now you got guys like Jordan Walsh. The great thing about the Celtics, I think, the difference between this year and last year is they have a better bench. And what I mean by that is like you have last year, it was your buddy O'Shea Brissett. He was a disappointment. Grant Williams had left. O'Shea was supposed to come in there and play a pivotal role. He didn't. But now, if you look at it, Peyton Pritchard's taken a full step forward. Jordan Walsh is actually useful in games. Now, he's going to get left open a lot for 3-pointers. He's going to start hitting those consistently. But he is starting to play quality NBA minutes. Not great NBA minutes, but he's taking that step forward in his second year. And then Queta and Cornette. So those are 4 guys. And Hauser really hasn't shown all that much because of the back injury. He's just working himself in. But this bench is better. And we haven't seen, much for, there's J.D. Davidson who's on a 2-way and Drew Peterson and Anton Watson. The Celtics sent down Shireman to the G League, which I just think is probably a good idea because he's not going to play much and he needs to start getting some reps. And then Jaden Springer, we really haven't seen much from him either. But I think the good news for the Celtics is that their bench has all taken a step forward, right? And so that takes less pressure from Al Horford. You don't need to play Al Horford 30 minutes a game. Play him 22 to 23. Cornette, very useful. Queta, very useful. Like, that's the thing. When you have a team that's so highly paid, when you have White on an extension, Porzingis on an extension, Drew Holiday on an extension, and, of course, Brown and Tatum, you're going to need to develop and have cheap talent working for you. You can't go out there and just sign free agents. And so the Celtics, what they've done better than they have in the past is they developed a guy like Hauser. They developed now Queta. Now they're developing guys who will not make any money for a while. Now Hauser signed an extension, but Queta's at the league minimum for this year and next year. So he's not going to make any real significant money till the 26-27 year. And then you look at in Luke's coming back on doesn't make a lot of money, but they're playing pivotal roles, and that's what you need when you spend so much money on your high end players. Your lower end players, the lower paid players, have to come through and play pivotal roles. And I just think with the Celtics are doing this year, the difference I see in a very positive way is their bench has gotten better. Tatum, 6th Man of the Year candidate. And as I said, so Joe has last year, he couldn't have played Cornette and Queta at the same time. Not very much. He would have had to rely a lot on Al. And we're not even talking about Porzingis, who's probably about a month or so from coming back. So you've got depth, they're winning games, and they don't even have their starting center yet. So I think what this season has allowed Joe to do is to mix and match and be as versatile as he can be.
Yeah, and that versatility, Gary, it's a big part of why this team won a title last year, and it's a big reason why they're picked to win it by many to do it again. The one thing that I think is kind of unique about this group is that when you start looking at this roster, and Gary, as you accurately pointed out, the bench is better. But are they better because they're getting more opportunities, or is it because of more opportunities they're better? Which do you think is the bigger factor?
They've gotten better. I just think Peyton. Remember, Peyton was not always such a reliable shooter. He has become a very reliable shooter. Queta was always in foul trouble, or he was goaltending. Now that's not really an issue anymore. Cornette, we all would wish we'd be more forceful around the rim and start dunking on people as a 7-footer should, but he's played the game the right way. He does all the right things. He's so unselfish. And then, Hauser is Hauser. He's going to knock down those three-pointers. So I just think the bench has gotten better. And I think Joe has had to trust those guys because now you have Porzingis out. Now Jaylen's out, for maybe a couple of more ball games. So he's going to have to – and then Jordan Walsh, who I think has been probably I would say Peyton's been the biggest surprise because he's played so well. But – Jordan, I don't think any of us knew, especially after Summer League. He really struggled in Summer League. I think a lot of us were like, well, this might be another transitional year for him where he'll have to spend most of the time in the G League, and maybe next year he'll make an impact. But he has flipped a switch, done a 180, and become a different player than he was in the summer, playing with more confidence. And he'll knock that shot down eventually. He'll become that 3-and-D guy that they want. So I think the bench has improved, and they've gotten also opportunity.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Jordan Walsh because Jordan is a guy that you weren't really sure what the heck you were going to get out of him this year. What part of his game you think he has made the best or the most growth in that has allowed Mazzulla to have a little bit more trust in him than he had obviously a year ago?
Just making the right plays and understanding his positioning on the floor, spacing, getting that open three. His shot will go down. He'll be better at that. He's working on it. But I just think basically being an adult on the floor, like not playing like you're the peewee kid in the varsity game where you're just running around and, oh, my God, I don't know what to do, and let me just die for this ball. Remember the early days of our friend Aaron Neesmith, who played with his hair on fire because he was not ready. He was not ready for the league when he came to Boston. He was still probably should have stayed his ass at Vanderbilt. He's a first-round pick, and it's worked out for him. He signed an extension, so good for Aaron. I think we all like Aaron and all have seen the kind of player he's developed into, but that wasn't the Aaron that we saw in Boston. It's the one who's in Indiana. And so I think not playing with his hair on fire, playing with a calmness, I belong now. He's 20. He's still obviously not old enough to buy a drink and not legal. However, he is – been around those guys, this veteran team. Now he feels like he's part of it. Last year, I'm sure he's just like, wow, I'm in the NBA. This is amazing. Which is great, but that's not really going to, you got to belong. And I think he feels like he's belonged. So I don't see it overall like, oh, he's scoring more now. He can score more, and I think he has the ability, but I just think the overall comfort is what I see the improvement. Like he looks like he belongs on an NBA floor. Like we talk about our friend Bronny, and Bronny does not look like he belongs in an NBA floor. Maybe 2 years from now he will, when he just kind of gets his feet under him. But that process is not easy, and I think Jordan is going through that process to where he can feel like he belongs, and it's not like, oh my God, I'm playing with like all-stars in the league, and oh God, take a picture of me. No, like he feels like I can contribute to this team.
Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks and do so with as little as 4 correct picks that can get you up to 100 times your money. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this basketball season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Just download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Yeah, I mean, when you talk about comfort, Gary, I don't know if there's anybody who is looking more comfortable, particularly at the beginning of games right now, than Jason Tatum. He's putting up big numbers night in, night out. But what he's doing in the first quarter has been ridiculous. I mean, he leads the league in first quarter scoring, 13 and some change a game. We saw against Atlanta, he had 22 in the first half and finished with, I think, 27, 28, something like that. What is it about Jason Tatum at the start of games that's allowing him to get off to such a red hot start? I mean, is it just making shots, or there's more to it than that?
Yeah, I think he's being more aggressive. One, he's playing the whole first quarter. Jaylen's not playing. Like, remember, I think there's been times where Jason's played half the first quarter, then come in and start the second, and then Jaylen's played the whole first quarter. But the way I look at it, Jason's playing the whole first quarter. He's getting 12 full minutes out there, and he's being more aggressive. He's being that primary scorer. And a lot of those shots are going down, and, you know, he's not needing to play the full 4 quarters because the Celtics already have the game put away in the third quarter. Like last night, he had 2 points in the second half. The Celtics are up by 21, 74-53 at halftime, and then they were up. You know, they extended the lead in the third quarter, so it was a kind of a game that was over. So Jason didn't need to do much, but I just thought, like you said, 26 points in the first half. And 3 balls going down too. When a 3 ball goes down, it makes everything so much easier for Jason. And that's the hard part. Like, it's just been up and down. He was 4 for 18 from 3 in the 2 games in Charlotte. But last night he went 6 for 14. He's got to be more consistent from the 3. And I don't know if that's, just a matter of just getting reps in with his new form, a new shot. But you'd like to see him at that 39, 40% as opposed to 34, 35, 36. You want him seeing near 40, and he's approaching that. And, you know, he told me in Charlotte that when he took 18 threes, that was a career high in Indiana. He made 5 of them. He said he settled. Took too many. He said he took 5 at the end of the first quarter, and he just said, I settled. And what you don't want Jason doing is selling, because he's a great dribble driver that can get to the rim with his length, and he can finish well. So you want him to do all those things, everything in his toolbox, as opposed to selling for the 3. But I just think he's not settling as much. The shot's going down, and he's being more aggressive.
Yeah, and the lack of settling, I think that's maybe the most notable change / improvement in his game. And this is a guy that doesn't have a whole lot of room to get better because he's really, really good now. But that settling, Gary, I'm just curious, because you go back and you look at the Charlotte game, and there was that Grant Williams, kind of cheap shot that, got everyone in a tizzy. Go back to the Indiana game. where it seemed that the Pacers were being pretty physical with him too. How much do you think those stretches where we see him settling, how much do you think that is because of the physical play? Because you tell me if you've noticed this, but it just seems as though teams are looking to be more physical with him now than ever. And by physical, I don't mean just like, bodying him. I mean like trying to put him on his ass more than, maybe some past years. Are you noticing that or you disagree with that? What's your take on that?
I think overall teams are trying to be more physical just with the Celtics as it is. And Jason's not a demonstrative guy. Jason's not a guy who's going to get in your face and he's going to push you back. He's going to get up and go to the free throw line. And I think people are just told, be physical with these guys. You got to knock them on their butts. That's the old 80s, 90s basketball. You're Detroit Pistons. That's how they play. Hey, nothing coming easy for you. You ain't getting to the rim and gliding and two-handed dunking and hanging on the rim like that. And I think that's fair, but I think Jason, like he is, he's handling it like a pro. And I think there's going to be a point where Jason probably gets to the point like, okay, I'm gonna have to say something here, or I'm gonna have to get in somebody's face. Because the Grant thing, obviously, we can talk about that. That was so unexpected. I'm looking, I was at the game and I looked down, all of a sudden bodies flying everywhere. And I'm like, wait a minute, what just happened? I was writing my story, because it was 2 minutes left in the game, trying to finish my story on deadline. And I'm looking and all of a sudden Jason's and Grant, I'm like, what just happened here? And because the Celtics were up 9, they're about to put the game away. So it wasn't like one of those tight, like it was like, okay, they got this. They eked it out after having a big lead, and it looked really good. And then Charlotte made a run, and all of a sudden, but they pulled away, and all of a sudden you see Jason walking to the free throw line, and everybody's like ooh and booing, and I'm like, wait a minute, what the heck is going on here? Mm-hmm. And I thought, quite honestly, we all love Grant. Grant's a good kid. But he's trying, sometimes he does a little too much, as we all know, we've all seen. And I just think that's one of those examples. And I think Grant needs to be careful with one. You don't want to like how I put this. I think of a guy there's two guys I think of when I think of Grant. From one is a guy, you remember him, Danny Fortson.
Yeah.
Danny Fortson was
my God.
I think he might have been a first-team All-American at Cincinnati. He was a bulldozer guy, not a typical NBA 4, could score on you, get to the rim, like all that. Man, had all the skill set. Goes to the league, and he's a little undersized, so the league turns him into an enforcer. So by the time I covered Danny in Seattle, he was a hack. Right? Mm-hmm. He was just like a guy who was just laying hard fouls. And I just remember talking to him, like, Danny, like in Cincinnati, you were like a 25-12 guy. Like you were not some hack, And he was just like, the league pushed me into being, I was undersized. He was like 6'7", 6'8". Right. They pushed him into being this kind of enforcer. Use your body, push a guy over, use your bulk. And it also reminds me of Big Baby Davis, where great, nice, good college career at LSU, was a scorer, and then goes to Orlando after the Celtics, and then becomes like, I remember seeing, him hitting the mid-range, averaging 17, 18 points a game. Then he got hurt. Then suddenly he becomes a hack, where he's just running into guys and hard fouling and he's showing up to the crowd, and he lost his game. And I don't want to see Grant lose his game to be some kind of goon enforcer and doing these stunts like this. Like, he's too young for that, and he's going to get that reputation of like, man, we don't need some goon. We don't need a guy to just lay hard foul. We need game, hit a jumper, post up, hit the mid range, because Grant, as you saw him at Tennessee, he was a scorer, right? And he showed the ability to hit 7 threes in that Game 7 against Milwaukee. Biggest game of his life. Stepped it up. And so I want to see Grant do that. I think we all root for Grant. We all like Grant. He's a great kid, talks a lot. So what? He's not in the trouble or whatever. I get, he talks a lot. So what? Like a lot of athletes doing a lot of negative things, and Grant's not one of them. He's a positive kid. Unfortunately, he just does a little too much. And things like that, running into your friend like that and flagrant 2, that's going to get you a bad rep. And the league will tab you and put you, stereotype you as a certain kind of player. And you see, that's why, unfortunately, our friend who's now headed to prison, Big Baby Davis, was out of the league because he lost his game and he just focused on bumping guys and never got into the great shape. So that's another topic. But I don't want to see Grant turn into Fordson, or I don't want to see the league push him or just push him into being a goon. And that's not his game, and that's not his personality. He should just play. He's a hard-playing guy. He'll get his nose dirty. He'll get in a guy like Jimmy Butler's face, which I never had a real problem with.
Right.
And so for me, I just hope that Grant learns from this situation. Says, okay, maybe I went too far. No more of the rough stuff. I'm going to be rough. I'm going to be hard playing, but I'm not going to be laying dudes out like that.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's sad when you see that happen because Grant has the skills to be a solid contributor in this league. But the thing that I'm not as worried about him as Big Baby and Danny, and no disrespect to either one of them, but Grant's a pretty smart dude. Grant, I think, understands that there are limits to where he can go, and I think he understands he's at that outer edge of what he can get away with and not be labeled as a thug or not be put into that box, because it's easy to put cats in that box, particularly when you are on a bad team, which he's on. They're getting better, but they are categorically bad team, and you don't want to pick up bad habits and get a bad rep for that. There's no doubt about that. Summertime is winding down, but the college football season will be in full swing before you know it. There's no better way to get your college football fix than Game Time, which is where you can find the best deals on college football game tickets, concerts, NFL, WNBA, and so much more. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff, so show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The one college football game I'm looking forward to seeing this year is when my alma mater, Syracuse University, comes to my neck of the woods and takes on the Boston College Eagles. There's a great selection of seats starting as low as, get this folks, $3. That's right. $3 can get you in the building. Having the map of the stadium along with the different color-coded prices makes it super easy to find the best seats for your budget and not have to scramble all over the place on your app to do so. And you're covered by Game Time's lowest price guarantee, where Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Speaking of bad reps, your boy, Mr. Beating up on reporters, Joel Embiid. Full transparency on this one. The columnist that he had beef with, Marcus Hayes, I used to work with Marcus in Syracuse. Marcus, okay. In fact, what's that?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's your boy then.
I've known Marcus a long time.
Yeah.
And that column, I remember reading that column, and it was this is for me, it was like, there's the journalist in me that says, you know what, these players got to have thick skin. I mean, if you're going to let some noun verbs and adjectives get you all, get your panties bunched up, like, you got bigger problems than me. But the human person in me is just like, if you writing about me and then you invoke my dead brother and my son, we might have some beef. And I'm sure you've heard by now, certainly our listeners have, that Joel has been suspended 3 games for the shoving incident with the Philadelphia Inquirer columnist Marcus Hayes. And that'll begin when he is supposed to return, I guess next week, next Tuesday, I think is when he's supposed to make his season debut. But Gary, I mean, again, as someone who has, you've been around the league for a long time, we both have had our issues with players where we had, it got a little heated to say the least. Are you surprised that Joel got 3 games? Is it too much, too little, about right? How do you see the punishment the league doled out to him for that incident?
I thought it would be at least 5 games. Obviously, they talked to all parties involved, and maybe the altercation wasn't as, I don't know what the push was like. I don't know whether he fell to the ground, whether he just kind of like put his hand on his shoulder. Like, who knows? Obviously, I'm sure they talked to Marcus Hayes. They talked to Embiid. They talked to witnesses. The league doesn't do this lightly. They do their heavy and extensive investigation into these things. So if it's 3 games, it's 3 games. As a columnist or a reporter, you have to be careful. Like, you can't get personal with guys like that. Like, you can't bring up family members. You can't, I think Embiid was fair. Hey, you can rip me, tell me I'm lazy, fat, all that, but just don't touch my family. Don't talk about my deceased brother, who I think was 14 years old or something like that when he died in a car accident.
Yeah.
And his son. And, reading the column, he didn't even need to mention that. That was just kind of like, that was a cheap shot. And, the one thing I applaud Marcus for doing is he came to the arena the next day or whatever, and he was there because there are columnists that we've worked with in the past that will write something from their, spacious homes and never come to the arena to confront the athlete.
Right.
And then you, as the beat writer, if you're at that paper, end up having to take the brunt of it from the athlete who's like, "Where's your boy at? You need to come out here and talk to me." But I ain't talking to you because you work at the same paper as he does. Right. And you're like, wow, I ain't even think of writing that. Like, that ain't me. But it messes with your job, your ability to do your job. Right. So, and that's journalism stuff and stuff that we've seen. And it happens. It used to happen a lot back in the day. It doesn't happen as much now. That type of stuff happened pretty often where there was altercations and arguments between reporters and athletes. And some reporters was like, "Don't let this reporter thing fool you. We can do this." And others were, some people backed down, some people didn't. It was fascinating to watch, and we've both been in altercations where your manhood's kind of tested, and you say, "Listen, man, I'm not like as much as I'm not going to let you just disrespect me in front of your teammates because when you do that, essentially your teammates, their teammates look at you like that's the dude who just backed down." I don't like some of them are good with you being like, damn. That dude got some heart. He stood up, or that young lady got some heart. She stood up for her convictions. That's the way you're supposed to. Right. So for me, I think Joel was dead wrong, but I also think Marcus could have written it a lot better and should have apologized and said, "Hey man, I went too far."
And and here's the crazy, well, not crazy, but the one aspect of it was that Marcus actually went back and did modify the lead, I think.
Yeah, he's changed.
And so I guess to me I think that may have had something to do with the league only giving him 3 games because it's like, what he did was wrong, but let's not act like this reporter was completely innocent and didn't do anything that even he acknowledged was not good. And so I felt 3 games was adequate. I forgot you had to say Joel had to be punished in some capacity, and I don't think a fine would have done it. I think he had to actually miss some action for that. But let's not make it something ridiculous like 5, 10, 15 games. To me, it wasn't that deep. And again, this wasn't like Marcus wrote a column that just kind of picked on Joel a bit or pointed out how he's just not showing up. There was a very specific passage in this column that Joel had issues with, and you would be hard pressed to find anyone in that damn press room reporters and non-reporters who wouldn't have some issues with someone writing about, again, their deceased brother and their child in that regard. When, as you pointed out, Gary, he didn't need to do that. And as he recognized after the kind of the initial backlash, he went back and changed it. And so he recognized after the fact he didn't need to do that. So I was happy that they were able to kind of handle that and resolve it and kind of get it out the way and keep it moving. And as we keep the podcast going and moving, we're going to move on to MVP talk. And for once, we are not going to talk about Jason Tatum. I think JT is in that conversation, but a guy I'm curious to get your take on is Donovan Mitchell. The Cavs are balling, man. They are balling hard. Now, Donovan Mitchell, there's been little murmurs about him possibly being someone that's in that mix now. Do you see him as a legitimate MVP candidate at this point in the season?
Yeah, as long as Cleveland keeps winning, and it seems like they're going to be a factor in the East for the entire season, I think he's got to get consideration. We're talking about, I think the front runner right now is SGA, considering how good Oklahoma City's doing. There's 2 undefeated teams, Oklahoma City and Cleveland. Mitchell's got to be in that conversation along with Luka, and we'll see if there's somebody else that emerges down the road who comes back and has a great season themselves. But for now, I think you've got to include Donovan Mitchell in that race because he's playing so well and Cleveland's playing so well. And Anthony Davis is leading the league in scoring.
Right.
32 points a game. He's averaging basically 33 and 12. Man, that's a hell of a year so far. So but Mitchell, 23 points a game, 40 from 3. So Garland is really having a strong start to the year. So Mitchell is 23rd in the league in scoring, but he's only playing 30 minutes a game. He's playing the fewest minutes of anyone on that list ahead of him. Like he's playing less than 30. All the guys ahead of him are playing 30, and Tyrese Maxey is playing 41 minutes a game. My goodness, that's old school.
They got nobody to play with. They got no choice.
Yeah, Tatum playing 34.6. Jokic is still having obviously average a triple-double. Luka, only 32% from the three-point line. Not a great start, 40% from the field, but he's averaging 29 a game. But you got to look at Mitchell. His numbers probably need to be a little bit better in terms of the scoring. However, to me, I think he's definitely a candidate because Cleveland is winning.
You know what? I put him in the same boat as Jason Tatum, and here's why. He's having a good season. He's putting up good numbers, but so much of his success, you can't look at his success in an isolated box of its own and not recognize the cast around him. Mobley is playing like an all-star. The Evan Mobley that we're seeing now is the one that we thought we just saw last year or the year before. He has been insanely good. Point guard play, off the charts. The Allen, big fella, Allen, he's playing well. You start looking at the guys around him, and they're all playing their best basketball right now. And that, to me, takes a little bit of the shine off of Donovan Mitchell, because even though he's playing well and he's having a great start, their success in large part is because of what those other guys are doing. Like I watched them play Milwaukee the other night, and granted, Giannis wasn't playing, so that in itself, you should be able to dominate. But just the way that they are on one accord. I mean, this is what we're seeing. Remember when Kenny Atkinson was coaching the Nets and they just played harder than damn near every team they played? They weren't winning a lot, but they played hard. Cleveland is basically that Brooklyn team with better talent. And the result is that not only are they outworking people, but they've got more talent and they're outworking you with more talent. That's why they're winning. And Donovan is a big part of that. But the way that Anthony Davis is playing in LA, the way that SGA is getting it done in OKC, there's at least 3 or 4 guys without even doing a deep dive search who you could put ahead of Donovan. But that being said, you give him his respect that he should be. If you're talking like the top 5 candidates, he's my 5th. I can't see him being any better than that right now, in part because, again, so much of the success that his team is having, while he's a key to that, Mobley, Allen, those guys, and Garland, those 3 guys in particular are all having career-type seasons. And the biggest concern I have if I'm a Cavs fan is this team peaked too soon. Because when I watch, I've seen them play a couple games this year, they look like amazing. This team looks on a completely different level, and I just don't. I'm not confident enough in them to sustain that. If they can, they're going to make things interesting for the Celtics. No doubt about that. But I got this weird feeling that they're going to hit that lull at some point and just kind of take a step back and again be a good team, but not a great one.
Yeah.
So, and the last thing, want to kind of, just end it on this, because we're taping this on election night. No, there's still some of the early voting and some of the early results have started to pour in a little bit, and we're not going to get too deep into that. But what I wanted to talk to you, Gary, about just the NBA in a broad sense. It seems every election cycle they try to go above and beyond to let it be known that you need to get out and vote and different voting initiatives. What are your general thoughts about just the NBA kind of putting itself in that particular space? To be, I guess the easiest way to describe it is just to create more civic engagement.
I think it all started with the bubble, and I think that one of the main issues, obviously, as the 2020 election was approaching in the bubble, was making NBA arenas polling centers. And I think the players finally realized that a lot of the NBA owners had political ties and were contributing to certain, campaigns and certain political parties. And they wanted those owners to put their money where their mouth is in terms of making arenas polling places and put more money toward encouraging people, especially younger people, to vote and understand their civic duty. And I just think that's continued. I think it was a good idea, as much as I think we all would love to watch some hoop right now and watch a couple of NBA games just to take our mind off things. It's good that they have a full day off to vote or to be with their families and take their families to vote, or vote with their wives or their parents or family members or things like that. They can do just what normal Americans do. And I just think that's important. And I think it was kind of cool that the entire league, played last night. Everybody, 15 games in the association on Monday, and we'll get back to the grind on Wednesday. So I think the NBA is doing a fantastic job of encouraging the player and putting it in the players' heads. Like, just because you're rich and you think you've made it, you need to contribute to society and do your civic duty, wherever ways you lie, wherever, and if you want to represent those ways and you want to take the heat for being on supporting a certain political candidate, that's fine. But just have good, it'd be okay to have some good reasoning behind that. So for me, I think it's good that the league is just saying, hey, go out there and vote. And because I think a lot of young people look up to these people. And that's the thing to me, the one thing that I thought was regrettable about maybe 2016 is a lot of young people were upset about the result, but didn't vote. And it's like, well, that's what you got to get out there and vote. Yeah. Like, you can't protest now and you didn't vote, or you didn't think your vote was important. I only got one vote. It doesn't matter. So I think the league has done a fantastic job in the Players Association, and I think that's important. You've got to reach out to the community, you got to reach out to the people, you got to reach out to your fans, and have them understand that they're citizens too, and we're all citizens, and we should carry out our civic duty.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're spot on with that, Gary, because I remember a time, and I'm sure you do too, when the league did not make any type of concessions for election day. I remember, being in Detroit, and players were, pissed that, they would basically say, we're going to be late for practice because we need to get in line and vote. And, you'd have games on election day where you've got shoot around in the morning, hard to get. So if you don't vote before then you got to disrupt your midday, routine, and then you got a game to play, and it's like, it's a lot for players to have to put off to the side when in fact they shouldn't have to, because at the end of the day they may be NBA players, but they're still citizens of this country, most of them, and they want to participate in the process. And there was a time when they just weren't necessarily given enough freedom to do that. And so the league giving you setting no barriers in your way for voting, I think has been a great thing. And I'm hoping that, most players were able to do this today, because it's really important. I have been voting ever since I've been able to vote. I have not missed a single presidential election. And I'm old school from the standpoint of I like to physically fill out my ballot and be there in person. I know that you can do mail-in, and that's great. My mama do mail-in. She loves that. I don't. I like to be there. And but regardless of whether you mail in or whether you showed up in person today, participate in the process, folks. Participate in the process. And that is it for this week with the NBA Big Three podcast. Quani Lunis will be back with us next week, so we'll have more engaging, thought-provoking conversations about the 18-time NBA champion Boston Celtics. We need to have a conversation about this whole world champion thing too, Gary, because
that's a good idea.
I got some issues with that world champion label, because anyway, we may have a conversation about that another day, another time. But again, for Gary Washburn, for Rob Blakely, this is the Big Three NBA podcast. We out.